Okay, I think we are live. Guys, can you hear me okay? Sorry for the 2-minute late start there. My Wi-Fi decided to just pack up as I was going live. So hopefully you can hear me all right. Okay, just need to check you all on. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm going to assume everyone can hear me. No major announcements this week. Thank you there's over 100 of you that joined the community yesterday. So this is going to be fantastic. So glad you're all starting to come across now. Obviously, I consider you my extended community on YouTube, but I'm talking about the private community, which is all the finance, economics and stuff we discussed there. So glad that we've got over 100 people and it's still going every single day since I told you about it yesterday. So looking forward to serving you all over there. Got some good content. I made a video just a couple of days ago for you. And that's all on crypto and a few other investments that I'm doing at the minute. So just to tell you a quick thing that we're doing at the moment. So we're doing a little experiment. I'm doing it with my own money, and I've just put in 1,000 pounds, so British pounds, into 20 different altcoins. So I guess that's $1,300 or something. So I put that into each altcoins, and we're going to just track this and see how they're doing over the next few weeks or so. And then there'll be a lot more actual training. We've got a couple of really good guys in the group who are somewhat experts in crypto. As you know, I'm still intermediate. I've only put about 400 or 500 hours in so far. So I'm still learning a lot of it myself. And it's really fascinating, actually. I know some of you aren't interested in crypto, some of you are, but I would say it's really fascinating how difficult it is to actually get in and learn a lot of it. For me, the finance and economic side of it, it's very simple, very straightforward. I get it. But learn about cryptography and what each different crypto does, and one's a security protocol, and one's a network, and one's a digital gold, and all that sort of stuff. So we're focusing this month on crypto. So if you're interested in getting into crypto and learning about it and getting started, definitely come on over. The link's below in the description. And I think they are the announcements. Oh yeah, I'm back on Twitter. So my account is back on Twitter. I've got to behave myself, no naughty tweets. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's again just my name, Neil McCoy-Ward. And apart from that, where do I sign? Yeah, you just sign up below in the link in the description. It's Patreon/Neil McCoy-Ward. And then you can get in, you can get additional training and extra videos and a lot of posts and things like that. It's really fantastic. We got a big chat community as well. Cover everything from mining commodities to stocks to analysis to charting, controversial stuff, prepping. This is a new one. Everyone wanted a prepping channel. We've got, honestly, everything: crypto trading, crypto investing, silver, gold, precious metals. So that's it. Let me get into question one then. And as always, if you ever want to ask a question, you want to make sure your question gets asked. It is through, again, the private community. I make a post every month and I explain how to get your question asked and answered by me. So these are the people that have done that. You just need to join at tier 3 level, and that guarantees your question to get answered. All right, good. So question 1, this is from Richard B. He's a long-time member and is, hi Neil, what is a general rule of thumb or recommendation on the minimum or maximum amount of precious metals to store at home? I'm looking for a balance between having enough in case of a financial emergency and too much risking theft or personal security. Okay, so good question there, Richard. As always, and again, I think this is something people misunderstand with me, I do a lot of allocation and vaulting and things like that. And especially in America, people don't like that. They don't like to put their money in the vault because they say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. This is a thing everyone says to me all the time. So I do personally keep mine in the vault. I keep it on an allocation account so I can just liquidate very quickly because it's digital account. I've got my holdings there. It's allocated. I can quickly liquidate. I did a big video on it if you want to watch that. It's called, I think I guide to allocating bullion or something like that, but it's on the channel. So I personally recommend, and this is what I always say, buy physical first. You always want to have physical bullion first before you allocate or anything like that. And just to get you started from a point of view of financial emergency or worst case scenario, 10 ounces, 20 ounces, 30 ounces. It doesn't need to be a lot. Make sure they're 1 ounce coins. That will protect you pretty well against any financial emergency. And when I say emergency, I mean, we're talking worst case scenario, like you had to barter because the financial system has collapsed or something crazy like that. 10, 20, 30 ounces would cover that. Now, in terms of keeping metal at home and how you actually store metal and all that sort of thing, you've really got to look at how much would be too much for you to lose, right? So let's say that you kept $1,000 worth of metal at home and someone broke in and stole that. Would you be upset? Would it be the end of the world for you? If the answer is yes, then it's probably too much. So that would be my first point on it. There isn't really a general rule on how much is too much to keep. But also remember, you can insure your metal. So you can put it on the insurance policy. And you just got to keep your fingers crossed and hope that no one ever hacks into that insurer's details and records and finds that you've got metal stored at home, gold and silver. Oh, look at this guy. He's got 100 grand's worth of silver at his house. Okay, let's go and rob that house. You got to be careful with stuff like this. I don't trust any big companies with my data anyway. So yeah, I think that's what I'd say to that question. Don't keep more than you're comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable keeping it in a vault or allocation, then just make sure that you get it insured. Yeah, definitely get it insured if you're comfortable getting it insured. You see, it's such a difficult one because it doesn't matter which way you go, you have risk with it. And even keeping it in the vault, you've got risk with it. Keeping it at home, you've got risk with it. I always ask the question of this: if someone broke in to your house, and regardless of whether you're in America and you've got firearms and all that sort of stuff, if a group rushed your house, would it be worth trying to take care of that situation? For me, I say no. If someone rushed my property, or if I lived in America and whatever, I would just be like, oh, here we go. Here, take what I've got, because I don't keep a lot of valuables at home anyway, because people know me. I'm becoming more high profile now, which is both a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. So I personally don't keep any, valuables, high valuables at my property anyway. So that's what I'd say to that. Next question then, and this is from Brandon Millin, again, longtime member. With the economic deterioration and possible collapse, what will happen to all the retirement savings plans and pensions? This is something that's not really been talked about much throughout the pandemic. Okay, good question. The answer is, personally, I think we're in a pension crisis anyway. What else did you mention here? Pensions and savings plans. I was talking about this to a private client recently, and he's in a pension program, and I said, well, what does your pension provider invest in? And he said they are very heavy in student accommodation. Like if you think of the UK, all these massive student blocks that hold hundreds or 1,000 rooms in these city centre locations. And I started doing some research and looking into this, and I found that actually a lot of pension providers have been doing this. They've been buying into these massive student blocks. And what's happened to these student blocks now? They're empty, and the students are refusing to pay the rent as well, to pay their term fees and all of this to the accommodation. So already I think we're seeing crises anyway in pensions and savings plans. You just can't see it because it's all digital, it's all numbers. But if you were to dig a little bit deeper with your plan and find out what they're invested in, I think a lot of them will be fairly secure. They'll be in, diversified and stocks and bonds and emerging markets and all these other things. They'll be diversified. But I think some of them will probably have taken a lot of risk. They've been trying to get these massive gains. They've gone into student blocks. They've gone into more risky things, businesses and shopping malls. All these sort of things right now, I would say, are very, very risky. And a lot of pension providers have gone into them. So if there was a massive collapse, you've just got to remember that what exists there is not money, it's currency. Money is gold, silver, etc. So what you're actually invested into is you've exchanged currency for a piece of paper or a note that says, in the future, you're going to get this. You're going to get a pension. You're going to get your savings back. You're going to get something like that. I'd be very surprised if there was a collapse, what you're asking here, if there was a financial collapse. I don't see how anyone would get anything back from pensions or anything like that. Personally, I don't think it would even exist in that space, in that situation, in that scenario. So, yeah, it's not being talked about because there is a pension crisis and people don't want you to know about it. Okay, next question is from Dixie Wall. I'm Californian, married to an Australian. We're currently living in Australia. Would it be better to hold stocks and crypto in the USA or Australia, considering taxation? Thank you and keep fighting the good fight. Well, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, especially a lot of you who are American and live elsewhere. But America is only one of a couple of countries in the world that has a double taxation policy. It goes by your passport, actually. It goes by your citizenship. And that is that if you go anywhere, so Australia or wherever you go, you still have to pay tax as a US citizen. It's like a double taxation treaty. Now, I can't really speak into that because I'm not an accountant. There's 1,000 different variables and variations to all of this when it comes to tax law in each country. Just becoming quite an expert in tax law in the UK took me years to do that, to figure out. So then looking at USA, Australia, etc. Yeah, that's outside of most people's realm. And I even know people who have tried to get accountants that could deal with their country and all these other countries, and they don't really exist. There's a couple globally who are specialist accountants who they have experts in different countries within their accountancy firm. But for the average accountant, they won't be able to advise you on this sort of thing. So I would say the best thing to do, if any of you are in this situation, is to actually speak to an international accountancy firm, because I don't think your general accountant will be able to help with something like this. But just be aware you're going to pay tax no matter what. So if you're American, you may as well keep your stuff in the USA. But again, that's just off the top of my head. I don't want to give any taxation advice because I'm not an accountant. I'm not an expert in this field. But I would say speak to your accountant and just find out what the taxation laws are between Australia and the USA, and then go with what they advise you. But you're going to have to do something and figure something out with the US government, because it's that country. And I think there's another little country, it's like Eritrea or some weird little country in Africa, who has this double taxation law where you get taxed no matter where you live. If you're not in the USA, let's say you're in Europe somewhere, or you're elsewhere like the UK where I am, you can actually fill in a form on day one that you leave the country. And then as long as you're out the country for 9 months or more, you don't have to pay tax in your country. And that's a great thing. Because you don't, for obvious reasons, you don't pay double taxation. And there's a question actually, as we go through this, I just saw it on the next page, and that's about countries to live in and taxation and things like that. So I'll go on to that shortly. So the next question is from Ewan Robertson. What would be a good sector of business to start at this moment in time? I would say that there really aren't many good businesses to start right now. And personally, I wouldn't start a business in this marketplace. No way, absolutely no way. What I would do is I would start training in something like a skill that could enable me to open a business or be self-employed in that skill set. So something like what's growing right now, the world of cryptography, cryptocurrency, that would be a good field to go into. Anything that's IT related, I would say is a good field to go into. What wouldn't be a good field to start training in right now? People might think airline pilot, that pays me over 100 grand. Probably not, because you've got this massive pool. And I'm going to talk about airlines, but think of it in terms of everything. You've got this huge pool of people who are employed right now, and they've been made unemployed. So they're still out there, this pool, and they're looking for jobs in a market where there's only this many jobs that exist. And this applies to hospitality. It applies to all sorts of things, right now, all these different sectors that have been decimated. And those businesses have started to collapse, like restaurants and hotels, they've started to collapse. So if you're in those fields, you obviously wouldn't want to carry on there, right? If you want to open a business, you obviously wouldn't open a business like that, because you've already got this oversupply and an under demand. So what sort of business would I open right now? Well, nothing's changed from the sort of things I do. So I specialize in property, real estate, housing, whatever you want to call it, depending on your country. So that's my expertise. I still have my companies that do these things. And there's a couple of the companies that we're struggling with a few things right now, because a lot of the tenants who, because we specialize in younger people and professional people. We specialize in student marketplace, things like that. So we've had to switch our student houses to professional houses and employ provide those rooms to people from local companies, some of the big companies, or the hospitals where they've got consultants, or they've got nurses or paramedics, people like that coming in. We're specializing in that right now with some of our multiple occupancy buildings. So that could be a good thing to look into, but I wouldn't open the business now. I wouldn't open a multiple occupancy business. I wouldn't open, say, a serviced accommodation business right now. But I would do the training and prepare for it, because all things come to an end. So people are talking about this crisis. Oh, it's never going to end. It's going to go on for years and years. No, it will end. All crises always come to an end. So I think this crisis will come to an end. And when that happens, remember, you had this much businesses, and this many will have collapsed. 50% maybe in some sectors, maybe 60% at max. So then when the demand comes back, it's going to come back in a huge wave, and there isn't going to be the supply. So you could prepare for something like that now. But overall, let me give you a really succinct answer to this. I would only make a business or do a training where it's digital, or the overheads are very low, like something you could do from home to get you started. So digital business, what would that look like? Well, look what I've done in the last, let's say, just over a year and a half. With my training academy, so I had a big seminar business. I used to do a lot of seminars. I don't know why, but last October time, I just felt this. I just got this feeling. I don't know. I can't really describe it. And I just felt led to turn all of my courses digital. So I stopped sort of doing the big seminars, and I recorded my seminars, my property trainings, and made them digital. And I've created an online academy, a digital academy with it. And then not long after we'd finished, it was probably a couple of weeks, then what happened was the whole crisis kicked in. All of these other seminar companies folded, collapsed, or they just had to close down, make their staff redundant. That didn't really happen to us. We were in a really fortunate position that it's digital. So everything's digitalized. We don't now need to go, oh, how are we going to record these events without an audience? We already solved that problem, you see. What else did I do? So that was one thing. Another thing was starting a YouTube channel. So I had a YouTube channel since 2014. I didn't really do a lot with it. I just put some property videos on there. And then in March last year, so 2020, I had less than 2,000 subscribers. I thought, well, let me just mess around with YouTube. I'm not really doing my job as a group director. And the directors of my businesses are still there. I haven't really got anything to do. I can't really direct anything. So I started doing a YouTube channel, just sharing some of my thoughts on economics, business, housing predominantly. And then you saw the subscriber base really, really grew. And I'm still amazed at how many subscribers we've got now, to be honest. So thank you, everyone. But that's another digital business. Having an online community like I've got, a Patreon community, that's an online business. All these things you can start. It doesn't cost anything. So you've got a very low risk, but it's easy to scale this, you see. It's very easy to scale it. If you're working in hospitality, you're exchanging your time every day for those 8 hours, whatever you work, for a set salary. So if you look at the people who do better financially, they maybe exchange their time for a salary, but it's usually a higher skilled, higher paid salary. And that's fine. I always say to people, don't listen to a lot of these YouTuber gurus who say, you're a loser if you don't do this and you don't do that. Don't exchange your time for money, blah, blah, blah. Again, I don't agree with that. I say, do exchange your time for money if it makes you happy, right? I think that's the most important thing with everything going on. And especially right now, look what's happened. Look what's happened in the last year to everyone. Some people, they've now become trapped in these jobs that they hate and they can't even get a new job. So I'd say, first of all, do something that you think you would enjoy and then digitalize it. So I hope that answers the question on which business to start right now. Next question is from Maurice M. And that is, what are your thoughts on tips to protect against inflation, in addition to gold, silver, and Bitcoin? Okay, tips are Treasury inflation protected securities. Okay, so they're issued by the US government. So they're like Treasury bonds. They only exist in the USA, by the way. So this question only applies to the US. But they're basically linked to inflation. So just so I can give context to this question, they're linked to inflation. So what do I think about them to protect against inflation? Okay. Well, firstly, we have to start with the foundation to the question. And that is the inflation index accurate? Is it true? I would argue no. So you're seeing like this tiny little bit of inflation or a little bit of deflation. And that's another thing to be aware of. If you're in deflation, you're going to be linked to that. I assume, I haven't checked the small print, but I would assume you're linked to the deflation as well. But in terms of the inflation, I don't think it is true what you're seeing online and what the government puts out, the statistics. I don't think they're true statistics, in all honesty. So will it protect you against inflation? Maybe, maybe not. If you saw the video I put out yesterday, at the end of the video, I know only 24% of you actually get to the end. So let me just tell for the other 3/4 of you, I talked about food prices and the World Food Index and how it rose 6.6% just last year. And it's been rising every single month up to December. So you've got to bear all of this in mind. And you're not seeing this inflation. You're not seeing certain things included in the CPI, so the Consumer Price Index. But it's better than anything else. You've just got to weigh up whether or not you think treasuries and bonds and things are a good investment right now. Are they secure? I would say yes, if you're linked to inflation, they're okay. They're protecting you. But you're not really going to go anywhere with it. You know, it's not really going to help you out. If you're in treasuries and bonds that aren't linked to inflation, if you're getting, say, 1 or 2% right now, or 3%, some people might be getting, inflation is going to be massive as we go through 2021. 2022 is going to be the worst. You're going to have massive inflation. So I personally don't have any money in bonds or treasuries or anything like that. I'd rather have my money in gold and silver. Mainly silver. I don't have much gold. I'd mainly be in silver because that is a protection. You know, if you look any times we've had crises, in most cases, not all, as the value of currency has come down, the price of metals has gone up. And silver's undervalued anyway. It is massively undervalued. It's manipulated by the usual suspects on Wall Street. There's a lot of manipulation going on with silver. So next question then, David Fries, I can't pronounce this. Friesen Bickler, I think, is that a German name? Hey Neil, if you expect a deflation, how do you see it unfolding? I think we're already experiencing deflation in some aspects. You see, there's different ways to look at deflation, you see. So we're already seeing deflation. Remember what I was talking just 10 minutes ago about an overproduction? So there's an oversupply and an under demand. Well, that's what we have right now. So in terms of deflation, that just means how can I put it in simple terms? I'm so used to talking about complex things that when I have to talk about simple things, my mind sometimes goes blank. But inflation is like a rising of prices. Deflation is a lowering of prices. So if we look at that from a very simple economics 101 perspective, how does that happen? Well, let's say that you have 20 hotels in Anaheim, California for Disneyland, right? But Disneyland's closed. So really there's only enough business for, say, one hotel of people going to work and do some stuff there, or they're in the area. So what happens is the price of all the hotels, they can't just demolish their hotels. It's not that simple. So what happens is the prices come down massively. I'm a good example of this because I stay in hotels. I have to travel a fair bit and stay in Airbnb and stuff like that. And what I notice is the prices right now are ridiculously cheap. So cheap. You can get an entire house for $50, £50, €50 a night right now, 3-bedroom type house. So we're seeing deflation already in certain things. And then we're seeing inflation in other areas like food, definitely. It just makes me laugh every time I see these news reports that say, oh, food prices are very stable. There's no inflation in food and all this. Absolute nonsense. In fact, one of the guys in the Patreon, his job is to design packaging. And I think he told me what it's called. It's like shrinkflation or something like that. He designs packaging for food so that you don't notice what's actually happening. So the price looks the same, but it keeps coming down. I don't know if you remember 6 months ago, I made that video. I had that bag of potato chips, and it was this massive bag, and I was so excited. And I opened it, and it just like all this air came out. And I went, what on earth? So there's this big bag, and it was like this much right at the bottom of the chips. So that's an example of what we're seeing. So now I've laid the context for that. If I expect deflation, how do I see it unfolding? Well, what I think will probably happen is as we go into a deleveraging. So you've noticed I've been talking about this quite a lot lately, and a couple of other people have been talking about the deleveraging as well. I think what we'll probably see is as there's too much production, too much supply of things, and the monetary supply will have shrunk so much that all the currency, because of the bad debt, because remember, most of the things that you see as money or the money supply is actually not money. And I don't mean it in the context of it's not currency. I mean, it's not even currency, it's debt. So what you see here, like that much of it is all debt. And then that is, the capital, the principal. So what's going to happen is and this is what a lot of people don't understand because it's not really taught, but when all the bad debt starts to collapse in upon itself, all you're going to be left with is the capital, the real money, the real currency left at the end. And that's why I always say silver, gold, and now crypto, because what's going to happen when this deleveraging starts to occur, everyone's just going to jump into safe assets. Now, am I saying cryptocurrency is a safe asset? Not necessarily. It's very new. I don't know what's going to happen with crypto in the future. I don't know if it's going to be over-regulated. I don't know what the governments are going to try and do, some sort of crazy schemes. I honestly don't know. But is silver a safe asset? I think it is personally. Again, not financial advice to you, but for me personally, I think silver is a safe asset because it's never going to go to zero. What will happen with silver is it's always going to have a commodity value. You can't make solar panels without silver. You can't make, Apple products, phones and iPads and stuff without silver or something similar. You see, silver's used in most things. So it's always going to have value, especially as mining production starts to come down, which it has. We've had a closure of a lot of the mines due to the COVID outbreak and stuff. Darn it, I shouldn't have said the word. My video is going to get flagged now. That's the keyword we'll use. We'll do the cough if I have to mention it in future. But this is what you're seeing. You're seeing this reduced output. And it's on my mind now. I'm like, oh man, YouTube's going to flag this video. I shouldn't have said that word. Where did I get to? So with a deflation. So that's what I'm seeing with this, with the silver. That's what I think is going to happen with it. So I think we're going to see an inflated price of the metal as people run to it. But I don't see the deleveraging occurring for a while yet. I think you've got at least a year. But again, that's just a guess. I'd say I don't think it's going to start before 2022. But that's how it will start. All the bad debt will start to disappear, and people will realize that this whole fiat system was just one big scam. I don't use that word lightly. It is a scam. And people will realize that it just disappears into thin air, all the debt, which they thought was money, but it's not. So that's exactly how it's going to happen. And as actually the real money, or your currency, starts to shrink in supply, and what are you going to do? Have you tried to get cash out the bank recently? Believe me, it is difficult. Just watch my video from yesterday and look at all the comments. You'll just see a sea of comments of people that can't get cash out the bank. People talking about having to have an interview for withdrawing. Someone said 3,000 Canadian dollars. They had to have an interview with the bank manager. I mean, this is insane. All the banks now, sorry, sir, why do you need this £1,000, $1,000? What's it for? And if you try and withdraw 10,000, you get flagged, as I found out, anti-money laundering. So just be really careful with it. Okay, next question. Let me speed up because I'm going a bit slow today, I think. Anthony Koopmans. Hi, Neil. Should UBI come? So UBI, Universal Basic Income. Should UBI come to be after the economies and many pensions have been devastated? I see the real chance of a hyperinflationary depression. I see a very real risk of endless printing to fight the above issues, but also the chaos coming. What do you see of the chances of a hyperinflationary depression? Okay. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I talked about slumpflation. So you may remember I talked about slumpflation. And I've never heard anyone talk about slumpflation before. So I might be the first one that's ever made YouTube videos or a YouTube video on it. But slumpflation is very, very rare. It almost never happens. And at the same time, stagflation, extremely rare. And I predicted stagflation, and now we have stagflation. So this slumpflation, I'm predicting possibly 2022, something around that time period, is one of the most rare things that you will ever see. And you only really ever see it at the end of a cycle, of a currency cycle. So they don't happen very often at all, maybe once in your lifetime. And basically this comes as a result of a depressionary situation with high inflation, like runaway inflation, very high inflation. Now you might ask, how is that even possible to exist? Because in a depression, don't you get deflation? And the answer is yes, you do, until the government starts to manipulate. So what they will do is they will start to print. As people say, the printing presses will just go brrr, all that sort of, I shouldn't even do that. I'm not good at that sort of joke. My nephew's great. He does it great. But that's what's going to happen. You're just going to get the printing presses going crazy. This is where, is where you go into high inflation. Okay. So you go into high inflation at this point. And eventually, if they don't stop doing that, you will get hyperinflation. Once you get hyperinflation, they'll just start taking zeros off the end, or 2 zeros off the end, because you'll start seeing $1 trillion note. Okay, we need to take that back, take a 3 off there. Let's get $1 billion note. This is what you'll start to see. So these are some of the crises that will come in. So what do I see the chances of it? I don't know right now, because if that does happen, like hyperinflation during a depression, that is the end of the cycle. there isn't really a way out at that point. They have to drop the currency and create a new currency. So a new Bretton Woods moment where you have the elitists meeting in a secret meeting to create a new currency. And I still think that's the reason my Great Reset video was banned, because no one else's videos have been banned. But so why was mine? And mine wasn't even crazy conspiracy theories. Mine was like, okay, this is what I think. I've done this research, journalistic piece. I think this will come about. So you have to bear in mind, mine wasn't a crazy, nutty story. Mine was very genuine. And I said in that, I think the real reason for all these bankers meeting is to discuss a new currency. I didn't think anything of it. And then my video gets banned. And I thought, well, why is that? Maybe I'm a little bit too close to the truth there with my thoughts around it. So we'll see. But that's my suspicion. Because again, the World Economic Forum, if they really are focused on a green energy initiative, why are all the members banks? Why aren't there any green energy companies that are like the focus, all these people, all these companies? Why are they all banks? It doesn't make any sense. Again, I know sometimes some of you guys get annoyed with me for some of the things I say, or if I talk about lockdowns, you get upset, certain people. But the thing is, you have to bear in mind, I'm not a health guy. I'm not a health expert or anything like that. I basically look at the facts and look at the data. And very logically and rationally, I look at that data and I say, what is the most obvious, common sense outcome here? What's going on? What's not working? If you get what I'm saying. Why is something spiking during certain incidents, right? I just look at it and say, there's obviously something not quite right here. I look at it from a purely economics point of view. And that's it. That's just one thing to be aware of with everything that I look at and forecast. I'm not adding emotion. I'm not trying to say I'm a health expert. I'm not trying to say I'm this expert. All I'm doing is looking at the facts and the data. So that's just something to understand about me and the way I, present all of this. Okay, so the next question is James Kerr. Hi, Neil. Do you see the Australian housing market collapsing? I live in a good area and prices are continuing to rise. Thanks for your hard work. The housing market in Australia has to come down at some point. And it will have to come down very, very heavily. Just like your neighbor, New Zealand. There are massive bubbles in housing prices, not values, but prices. And again, all of this is being caused by the stimulus and all the new currency creation. It's not a good solution to the scenario to keep creating new currency. You're killing all the savers by doing this because their savings are becoming worth less and less and less every time you create and put more currency in. I was just walking today and I thought, what would be a good example I could give you? And I saw this puddle, right? And there was this little girl and she was jumping in the puddle with her wellies. And I thought, that is a fantastic example that I can give you. So think of that pool of that puddle, and there's a little bit of water in there, and then what happens is, so let's just call that 100 units of water in that pool, and then what happens is it rains, or someone splashes and puts more water in it. What happens is that pool then rises, that puddle rises. Yeah, so that's the way to look at it. Someone's splashing around, it takes the water out of the pool. So you've got to think of it as a pool of currency. Yeah, that's the way to look at it. So I don't know where I was going with that. I was just going on a wild story there. Let me get back on track. So good area. Okay, so let me say what's happening there. So you've got these historically low interest rates. You've got all this new currency being put into the market. You've got JobKeeper in Australia, which is specific to Australia. It's like furlough or the unemployment benefits of USA and Canada. But in Australia, it's called JobKeeper. And you have very low inventory in Australia. But this is the case in most Western nations. It's the same situation. So it's only a matter of time until all of this collapses in upon itself. It has to. That is the law of mathematics. You can't just keep creating all this fake stuff. It's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, all this fake, whatever going on. Eventually things have to go back to normal. You can only print so much currency before you create a runaway on inflation. And one of the problems is, because inflation takes 12 to 18 months usually to kick in, sometimes 2 years, but it's usually 12 to 18 months. That's the sort of time frame with it. What's happening here is the politicians and the central bankers, they're human beings. If this was AI technology running it, it'd be very different. They're human beings. Human beings don't like to look ahead. If I ask you how many of you have got goals that go out 10 years, it's probably like 1 in 1,000 of you. If I ask you how many of you have got goals that go out to 5 years, okay, maybe 1 in 100 of you have got a goal to 5 years. But if I say this year, how many of you got a goal? It's going to be a lot more people. So they're human beings that are doing all of this. They're not looking out 18 months, 2 years as to what will happen with all the inflation. Eventually, it's all going to catch up with us, and we're going to have a massive crisis. So what is the odds of the housing market collapsing? Well, most of them, I don't think they're going to collapse per se, but they are going to have to reduce in value very dramatically to come back in line with true values, not prices, values. Okay, it's from Simon. Hi, Neil. I've noticed a lot of successful business people and investors, such as yourself, with business acumen, have previously served in the armed forces. What do you think it is about the armed forces that gives you an ex-service people the edge when investing or running your own business? Okay, that's a good question. For those of you listening, don't listen to this question from a point of view of, I'm not going to learn anything from this. I would say, look at this question from a point of view of, what can I take from what I'm about to say and apply it to my own life? So the main things that I got out of the military were discipline. The first one, I had very poor discipline. Actually, I'm still a little ill-disciplined now when it comes to authority and the media and stuff like that. But discipline, persistence, a huge one for me. Persistence, integrity. Those are the main ones. But really, the next one is grit. Having grit and just having that mindset of, I need to get this done no matter what. No matter what it takes, I'm going to get it done. And you may remember a couple months back, I talked about how I employed and hired some younger people. I didn't really want to. And that's because I don't have anything against young people, so don't get me wrong. But I didn't really want to hire many young people. And I got, one of the directors that came in said, we need to bring all these young people in and whatever. For me, I didn't really want to. I was happy to bring in 1 or 2, but I didn't want to have a big staff of marketing people and all that. And that's because I know what certain, people are like in the outside world, and they didn't have the same work ethic that I have. So some of my directors, they're ex-military. So they're used to, no matter what, let's get the job done. And I had so many situations where some of the younger people, and again, I'm not saying this against all young people, I'm just saying certain people who are very creative, some of them didn't like to work late, or, it would be 5 o'clock on the dot, they'd be out the door. They'd arrive at 9 a.m. on the dot. Whereas some of us, we might be in at, say, 8 a.m. We might work till 7 p.m. some days. If we've got a big project that needs to get done, we've got people relying on us, customers. We just need to do it. It's like having pride in our work and our job. But I didn't see that. And it wasn't just the young people, sorry, let me say. It was some other people. We had a guy, he was in his 40s. He came highly recommended, and he came in. And again, just didn't have that work ethic, that grit, that determination. Didn't have any integrity. Let me just say that. A couple of days I wasn't there, and he didn't even come in for work. So, there's just certain things I think military people have that anyone can develop these skills. You don't need to be in the military, but having persistence, having that dedication to your work and to your employer, to your job. If they look after you, you should look after them. If your employer doesn't look after you, and they obviously don't really care, don't work there. Life's too short. Get a job elsewhere. I know that's easier said than done, but for me personally, when I left the military, I did some work that I didn't like at all, didn't enjoy. So I decided that I would just leave and have no income rather than work for someone that was a real jerk to me. So, great work. Based on your travel to, what would be your top 3 or whatever countries to escape to if things really go mega sideways? I realize top is very different for everyone. My criteria would be relative safety, stability, and most importantly, preservation of freedom. I'm currently in the USA and realize my best bet may just be to bug out to a rural area with like-minded folks, which I should have done already. But, okay. That was a big one, Sam. That was a big paragraph there. So what countries can you escape to? Okay. For me personally, if freedom is a big important thing to you, I would look again logically and say, what countries have had freedom and they're used to freedom? It would be the USA and Canada and other places like that. See, people there haven't experienced what it's like not to have their freedom. And because of that, people don't realize when you're losing your freedoms. We were just talking in our forum just the other day about Mein Kampf, which was the book, the biography written by Adolf Hitler. And we were discussing it and some of the points in there and whatever. And I remember someone actually put in one of the comments or whatever you want to call it, paragraphs from the book. And it was talking about how you take over certain societies, and you don't take over in one big fell swoop. What you do is you infiltrate, and you do little thing. In Asia, they call it death by 1,000 cuts. So you do all these little things, and people don't notice it. Do you remember I talked on yesterday's video, about institutionalization? People don't notice that what's going on. And next thing they're saying, oh, these lockdowns aren't too bad. I'm fine. If this goes on, then you have these doctors saying, we need lockdowns for another 6 months, 9 months. We just need a complete lockdown for 9 months. There was this doctor on Twitter. In fact, there was a lot of doctors on Twitter saying this, and health experts. And I just thought, what planet? In fact, sorry, I'm not allowed to talk about this. My attorney advised me not to talk about this. Sorry. So let me just jump off that topic. So back on track. You've got to look at which countries have lost their freedoms, and they're used to that, so they can see it. So I would say that would be some Eastern European countries. If you look at what could I say, Serbia, or those sort of Eastern Bloc countries there, where only in the last decades they've actually got their freedoms back. I would say countries like that, even at the higher level politicians, they know what it's like not to have their freedoms. Or even Romania is another good country. So they're not going to just give everything up so easily like other countries will do. A lot of Western countries, I think, will give up their freedoms so easily because they don't even realize certain things that are happening. So let me see if I got any other notes on that. And off the top of my head, I don't know every tax bracket in the world, but I know a lot of them. And Serbia, Romania, I think they have a 10% income tax. I think it's 10%. It might be 12, but I think it's 10%. Excuse me. So somewhere like that, you're going to get good freedom and you're going to pay very low taxes compared to like me. I pay 60, 70% tax, which is insane. That's through the business. And then when I pay my personal income tax. So it's not good for people like me to be in the UK, which is why at some point I will be moving elsewhere, shall we say. But, just weigh everything up, create a spreadsheet, which is what I did. I created a spreadsheet on all the different countries that I might want to live in. What else? UAE, United Arab Emirates. I know some people might, think, oh, I'd never live in the Middle East or whatever. but they have a 0% tax rate. I've visited the Middle East many, many times, Bahrain and Doha, Qatar. Where else have I been? I've been to 5 or 6 different countries, Dubai, and I enjoyed it there. Yeah, there's a few little restrictions, but I thought it was okay there. 0% interest, 0% personal income tax there. So there's a lot of places you could look at and see what you think. Go there for a couple of weeks, see what you think of it. Islands are always good, Caribbean islands, etc. Next question. I've still got loads. Oh my goodness, I'm running long today. Daniel, hello Neil. I would appreciate your thoughts on how the Great Reset, if not stopped, would have on metals as well as the housing market. Do you have any concerns with hyperinflation on the housing market and the impact that would have on the rest of the economy? Okay. Daniel, this is a massive question. This is like, I'd have to talk about 4 things in one here, because we've got the Great Reset and then we've got different things. So let me just answer your question here. Have I got concerns with hyperinflation on the housing market? I think the chance of that is extremely low. The housing market would be last to have hyperinflation in it, I think. Oh, my voice is gone. I got a bit too excited early on. I losing my voice. So I think that would be one of the last things actually that would ever have the hyperinflation. Can you imagine buying a house when prices are doubling every single day? Okay, today the house is $1 trillion. Great. Okay, I got my $1 trillion hit. Oh no, but it's going to take 8 weeks to complete. Right. So that's 2 trillion. What's that? It's like 1,000 trillion or something. It would be crazy. It'd be crazy. Right. And I think I probably answered your questions, some of the other questions anyway. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce this name. I think it's White's de Belt. White's de Belt. Hi, Neil. I was just running and listening to your last video where you were talking about gold confiscation. Somehow, my brain connected it to the recently proposed Fincen regulation to enforce KYC. Okay, let me break this down. Okay, so Fincen is the Federal Crimes Enforcement Network. Okay, and KYC is Know Your Customer. So it's a banking regulation. So Fincen, April 1990, it was introduced. It's a US government. So it's a bureau of the US government, the Treasury, when it all came in. I don't expect anyone to know that. It's just a little geeky thing. So now I've laid that concept down. Okay, so basically it's asking about unhosted crypto or Bitcoin wallets. So personally, I think it's a little too coincidental. Do you see a potential risk in confiscation like you see gold in relation to what you said about people that withdrew their gold previously being publicly shamed? Okay, this was the Great Depression diaries. Just check them out if you don't know what he means here. P.S. I like how you change timelines and forecasts based on new evidence instead of holding on to theories like so many others do. Keep up the good work. Okay, so the question is, do I see a potential risk in Bitcoin crypto confiscation like gold? Well, let me just say another thing with Fincen and KYC here. And that is that it's basically AML, anti-money laundering. So do you remember yesterday I said that I got hit with anti-money laundering because I couldn't explain, how I make all my money, and I was trying to explain my income streams to the guy at the bank, and he doesn't really understand entrepreneurship, so he didn't get it. Well, that is a similar policy here. So what many of you may not know is that if you go to the bank and you make a transaction that's say $10,000 or more, it flags up as anti-money laundering. So someone will investigate that transaction. Most people aren't aware of this. So with this Fincen and KYC, actually, this is once you accumulate 10,000. So if you do a 10,000 in one day, you're going to get flagged right away. Your account could even get frozen under certain circumstances. So that is the context of the question. Do I see a confiscation of cryptocurrency? It's always been my concern, and it's still a concern. Maybe not confiscation, but over-regulation. On the 6th of January, just 4 days ago, the UK passed a new law around cryptocurrency, and it makes it a lot more difficult for doing certain things with altcoins and things like that. So it is definitely a risk. So I don't know. Maybe someone can drop in the comments what they think in the stream here with the risk of that. But I definitely think it's always going to be a risk, or they'll try and over-regulate it, because these people that have the power in the finance world, they're not going to want to compete, you see, with Bitcoin and some of the other things. They just won't. If you had complete control and power over all the money, would you just want to give it up easily? I personally don't think it will. So I think it's always going to be a risk. Next question, Adam Draz. Hi, Neil. When it comes to purchasing crypto such as Bitcoin, do you think dollar cost averaging is a sound strategy, or is there any merit in learning about technical analysis to figure out good entry points and pullbacks, in your opinion? Okay. I think you should learn everything that you possibly can about every topic. So if you're interested in finance and things like that right now, cryptocurrency, study it day and night, become an expert in it. I think it's really important. So talking about pullbacks and technical analysis, definitely learn it, definitely study it, because you'll start to see other patterns. Like when I studied it, you start to see patterns, and you can see how you can actually take advantage of different purchasing opportunities. Oh, my voice. Guys, remind me next time. Let me know in the chat. Don't go too energetic at the start, or my voice will go. Okay. Next one. Iman Mag Saudi. Hi, Neil. You mentioned taxes will go up. I live in California, and as you know, we pay one of the highest taxes in the US. What do you think about setting up an offshore or mid-shore company like in Malaysia or the Seychelles, etc.? Again, I'm going to refer to what I said to Dixie, and that is, if you live in the USA, if you're a US citizen, they're going to tax you no matter where you go. So yes, you can set up a company to reduce that, and you can definitely 100% reduce that by setting up a company that will work well for you. But then you've just got to look at why you want that company. If it is just for taxes, how are you going to take the money from the company and pay it to yourself personally? Because once you do that, you're going to get taxed there. So you could be paying some sort of taxes, maybe no tax in certain islands, but you've still got to pay yourself in your currency in your country. So there's got to be a reward. There's got to be a payoff. If you said to me, I live in Puerto Rico and I've set up my business in Puerto Rico, yeah, sure, that makes sense. But if you're living in California, I think that's the biggest issue. It's where your residence is. That is the challenge. Me personally, I was going to live in California. My wife and I, we planned it all out. And there's absolutely no way we would move to California now. We'll go for vacations and stuff like that. We might go for a couple of months each year, but we wouldn't live there. The taxes are just too high. It's not worth the reward, in my opinion. So next question. This is from Kathleen Polar. Could you give us an example of how property confiscation might be implemented in Canada, for example, including how people with higher mortgages to pay off might be worse off than those whose homes are paid off? You get the gist of my overall question. I'm still trying to visualize how they would expropriate us. Okay. So this question relates to, again, the Great Reset. And if you haven't heard, they talk about you will own nothing and you will be happy. So this is by 2030, this whole Great Reset, you will own nothing and be happy type policy comes in. Personally, I think a lot of YouTubers have probably done a little bit too much injustice and scared people a little bit too much. And the World Economic Forum as well are scaring people by some of the rhetoric that they're putting out. And I don't think it's healthy for people's mental health to keep putting this out, because it is scaring a lot of people. And of course, the other thing that accompanies this is that in Canada, there's a lot of concerns as well. And I know a lot of people have been talking about these camps and things like that. I'm not going to go into it in detail because I don't want my channel to get, taken down or whatever. But one thing I don't understand around all of this whole thing with property confiscation, if I was Justin Trudeau and I was on that news report, I was on the news, and someone said to me, "Oh, Prime Minister, can you set everyone's mind at ease and just disqualify these rumors around camps and things like that?" I would go on and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, this is not true. There's no camps. There's no, whatever." I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do what he did and go, "Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to talk about fake news," and go on for 20 minutes about fake news. And then someone asked, "Yeah, but can you talk about," he goes, "Yeah, fake, we need to discuss fake news and we need to get this out the media, and I'm like, why aren't you just saying, no, that's not true? Why don't you just say, no, there won't be confiscation of property rights? That's what I would do. If ask me, I'm Prime Minister, Sir, Mr. McCoy-Ward, Prime Minister, can you just set people's minds at ease? Yes, yes. There's no such thing as camps. We're not going to confiscate your property, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Anything else? What? Am I being too logical here, guys? I don't know. But that's what I would do personally. So how could it be implemented? Well, I'm just going to tell you a wild conspiracy type thing here. I'm not saying this is true. Let's just pretend this is a game. We're doing a fiction movie, okay, to get around it. What could happen is if people have got too much debt and they've taken on too much debt and they can't pay the debt back and everything collapses, and certain people say, well, you will still owe us for this. It could be confiscated if you can't pay it. Just like any mortgage, if you don't pay your mortgage, it could be confiscated. Now, if you own your own home, no bank can come in or financial institution and just confiscate your home as of right now in the worlds with the liberty that we have. Although in the US, it's a little bit different though. You have something that we don't have in the UK, which is like liens against your property. That's what I found out the hard way. I didn't know when I bought a property in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Next thing, I've got a lien against my property years and years ago. This was, didn't even know about this stuff. So yeah, I think I've answered your question there, Kathleen. Okay, last question then. This is from Russell Saunders. Hi, Neil. Thanks for the opportunity to ask these questions. What's your end of year, beginning a new year strategy for your portfolio? And how has that strategy changed in relation to past years? Okay. So firstly, I don't differentiate between the 31st of December and the 1st of January. It makes no difference to me. I think it's interesting when I see a lot of people talk about their New Year's resolutions. I've got these, and they make 20 New Year's resolutions. And I think, okay, you're probably going to do 1 or 2 of those, 3 at most, but you're not going to do all these 20. So I don't have New Year's resolutions. I don't, do any of that sort of stuff, because I have my goals, and they're there for however long. So I do them 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5, etc. So I think of things in this sort of context. I don't look at it from, last year, this year. Time doesn't really come into it from my point of view when I'm doing things. So next then, number 1 is having your own home and having it debt free. You don't want to have debt with your home. Pay down your mortgage, own your home outright. And then once you've done that, or at the same time as doing that, whatever your income is, only have your expenses 80% or less. okay, 80% or less. Too many people have 100% of their income and 110% of their expenses, credit cards, loans. That's how you get yourself into trouble, especially in periods like this that we're going into. A lot of people are in big trouble because they've taken on too much debt, or they've got cars and houses that they can't really afford because the prices are above what their sort of income salary is. But of course, debt has done this. In fact, I'm probably talking to 90% of the people online watching this stream right now. So I would say get out of that debt quickly and get to a situation, even if you have to downgrade your living standards a little bit, where you are at 80% of your income are your expenses, and then start putting away that 20%. Let it compound, let it grow, do something with it so it's actually growing. But the most important thing is to have your own home and to pay it off as soon as possible. Anything else? Anything else? Yeah, after that, the other thing you want to have are assets. So precious metals like silver and gold. And if you consider cryptocurrency an asset, then have some cryptocurrency. I still consider crypto a speculation, but I'm very happy. I think it's a fantastic speculation. So I like that. Okay, we've just got a question come in. Hi, Neil, would you consider a 30-year low interest rate mortgage an asset as inflation occurs? Yeah, definitely, Don. Okay, let me see. 3% mortgage. Yeah, definitely, because it's going to inflate away. And it's a very low rate anyway. That is going to be inflated away by all this currency printing anyway. Okay, before this one runs away, who's this? Bay Nagayan. See, I know how to pronounce that, Nagayan, because I've got a friend with the same name. How did these NGOs acquire so much power? Who backs them? And is it them who control the economic and financial system? You know what? I'm going to create a video series. It's probably going to be 10 to 15 parts long. And I'm going to go into this in detail because it is quite scary. And they're called the technocracy, who these people are. And again, I have no idea who they are. I just want to say that. This isn't like a crazy theory I've got, conspiracy around who they are. I don't know who they are. I just know in every human civilization, there's always someone at the top. Think of a school. There's a principal. Think of a hospital. There's a senior person. Think of a military regiment. There's a commander. Politics. There's a president or a prime minister. There's always someone in every, at the top of every one of our societies. So to think that there wouldn't be some people that are sat at the top controlling all the finance, I would say anyone that thinks that there isn't would be mad. So people think I'm mad for thinking it, but I think people that don't think it are mad. Of course there is. There's always someone at the top of every hierarchy. So, look, listen, my voice is gone. I think that's it, guys. I don't think I'm going to be able to do any more. My voice is gone today. There was too much talking and shouting earlier. So I'll pace myself better for next time. But I really hope that helped out today. Hope I answered all of your questions there. And you enjoyed the session. You got a lot of value from it. Thank you for liking the video. Click like on the video. I really appreciate it. But until next week, take care. God bless. See you all soon.